I was there. I don't have to listen to it.
This week's show because it was a disaster.
When you live in a beach resort, it's easy to forget whether you are playing or working. On each week's show, we settle in with a cocktail and try to figure out if there is a difference. This is Day Drinking on Delmarva.
I am Todd from GoodCleanFunLife.com.
And I am Tony Russo, no relation, and you're listening to Day Drinking on Delmarva, a podcast about life and culture on the Delmarva Peninsula. Todd drinks because he gets to live here. I drink because I have to live here. So much going on this week. There was as I thought of that, I thought of something else that I'd like to talk about, and we'll get to that briefly.
Okay.
But before we do that, we're going to get to our sponsor each week. Each week we are sponsored by the drinks we are drinking, as well as by a small local business that we like to support. This week I am sponsored by the last little bit of water in this cup because I'm radically unprepared. Oh, there's my water bottle. Babysitting today is my last babysitting. I don't often babysit on Tuesdays, but it is a babysitting day, and the paper that I work for is going out today, so it's been a busy one, and that's why I'm not drinking today. But I promise next week I will resume drinking.
Good. Yeah.
And what are you drinking, Todd?
I'm drinking a high noon passion fruit. Had a long weekend of we were out for four days and did a fair bit of drinking, and I figured why not just keep going with the theme and drink it for lengths of time. This is this is a good option, I believe. And I'm also going to have to cut the grass later. So this is like grass cutting stuff that's good to have, especially now that I'm much more off of the beer. Although I definitely slide back to beer every so often. Summertime.
Yeah. I was away this weekend, and I had several beers. I had probably had more beers this weekend than I've had in the last month or so. But it's not that I've lost. Yeah, I've lost my taste for it. It's as simple as that. I'll have I probably may live and die and never drink another IPA all the way down.
Yeah.
I had even I've never been nuts about the all day IPA, and that's what they were drinking, and it wasn't for me. You know, I've really just kind of reverted to like, give me a lager, just a lager,
Yep.
maybe a Pilsner if I'm feeling kooky. You know, if the winter comes around, maybe I'll start drinking stouts and porters again. But I like the darker beers. I like the Scotch ales and such.
Yep.
And people don't make them anymore, and people don't drink them anymore. And you have to go to a brewery to get one. And I can't think of a good reason to go to a brewery. So that's been my my whole shtick this summer. And this episode, as we said, is sponsored this time by me. And I guess it would be important to say this is not sponsored by the Beer with Strangers podcast, clearly.
Because that would be a good reason to go to a brewery.
Yes, that would be a good reason to go to a brewery. No, this is sponsored by the book Dragged into the Light. It is my book. I wrote it. If you would like to hear a free copy, you can reach out to me at by Tony Russo, either on social media or by bytonyrusso@gmail.com. I'd be happy to send you a review copy if you'd be happy to do a review for me. If you just want to buy it, that would be awesome. And it is well reviewed, and Scheisse, I don't have it with me. I got my medal in the mail.
Oh, yeah.
And if I were wearing pants, I'd get up and get it, but I'm not wearing pants. So I'll have to wait till next week. Anything I can't reach isn't on the show this week. But it was cool. It's a cool silver medal that, like with a blue ribbon that you hang around your neck. And I'm very proud of it. It's exciting. I have to do another big push for the book. It was a long summer, as we discussed last week, and I didn't weather it well, but I'm fighting the big fight, and hopefully we'll come back on it. But yes, Dragged into the Light, you can find at draggedintothelight.com. And so the recent review was by Stephanie Fowler, a friend of ours. She reviewed it on the local NPR station, And I guess we can also kind of get into it from there, only because the
Yeah.
local NPR station, our friend Brian Russo, is doing some programming there. He's not, I don't believe he's doing the news. I think Don Rush is still, fighting the good fight.
Yeah.
But Brian is doing a bunch of stuff over at NPR. And one of the things is, I think trying to get some more local programming. And as a result, he's doing this series of people reviewing books written by Eastern Shore authors reviewing Eastern Shore books. And so Stephanie was kind enough to review mine, and I'll be reviewing hers probably when I'm done with this. It was an odd experience because I know I wrote a review of her book and I cannot find it for the life
Oh,
of me.
funny.
And so I'm going to have to sit down and rewrite it,
Yeah.
and
Did
not
you
from
write
memory, because I don't remember anything I write. That's why I write it down.
it? That's got to be frustrating. Are you sure you dream or hallucinate that you wrote it? And
it very well could have been. I know that I found one review that got posted, but it was like 100 words. And I'm like, no, I think I wrote like 1,500 words on this book,
yeah,
but it's missing. Maybe I didn't publish it, but unfortunately, I can't search, Tony Russo on the internet, because it's not like it's a less than common name. So I was trying
yeah,
to, a lot of times if I remember what I wrote about, like some people look
like
in their Finder or in their files folder.
yeah,
I just search Google. I put my name in quotation marks and then like a line I remember writing from the story
yeah,
in
yeah.
quotation marks and let it come up that way. And I've been doing that all morning to no avail. So I
Oh,
must have forgotten to publish it. It's the only thing I can think.
yeah,
But anyway, so yes, Dragged into Light, Tony Russo, and listen to the local NPR station for all the fun new things they're doing. Maybe I'll start, because I honestly don't know what their programming is there
yeah,
anymore. I think we talked about it a couple weeks ago. I haven't been on that station in probably 3 years now, and
yeah.
people keep asking me, if they can be on my show,
Right.
and I'm like, well, you're not a listener, clearly you're not a listener.
Yeah. F you.
So it's getting harder and harder to be nice. That was that
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
The other thing we like to do each week is talk about a cool thing that happened to us because we live here or because we work here. And in this case, I think it's a bit of both, but we're going to start with Todd and
Mhm.
his great adventures over the weekend, both here and abroad.
Yeah, here and abroad. We did the opposite. We've been down here and lived down here at the beach, and we went to the city to get away for a couple days. We went to Baltimore, and I feel like we talked about it a little bit last week about, Ocean City, certainly not perfect. Maybe more perfect in my eyes than in than your eyes. But I feel the same way about Baltimore. Went to school at Towson. It's where Natalie and I met, and I have always enjoyed the city. And I always sometimes I wonder if I'm just too much of a positive person. Am I not pessimistic enough? And that sort of thing. But we actually we were there for a reggae festival, and we weren't working. It was time away, and we sat down next to a retired CIA guy at a local bar before we went to the festival, and we just struck up a conversation. And he'd lived there his adult life, and like middle class white dude, and still loved the city. So that was a good okay, maybe there's other people who feel that way about Baltimore, and so this was the first year that this festival was happening. So we ended up doing a lot of explaining to people, our Uber drivers, the bars we were popping in and out of on our way to or from, exactly what it was, because it's a long running festival that had been happening down in Florida, and it's not a big festival, which makes it nice. And it's also not strictly reggae music, right? Like white boy reggae music. I mean, I think there's a little more pop punk and a little bit more rock and a little bit, there's some little more poppy with some bands. So
I need to ask you a technical question.
yes,
Is ska very unpopular now, and that's why people don't say it anymore? Or has
there's
it been
definitely. I feel like I don't know how popular it is. I love it. Like that. That's like that. And into punk is my jam, much more so than the reggae side of things. So when I hear, when I hear a band that brings horns out onto the stage and is doing a more driven riff than the upbeat that the reggae is known for, I love it. So I think that there is a bit of popularity, but I just don't think it has quite the commercial success that
right.
that just the straight up reggae has. The Bob Marley imitators. But it's interesting because I also realized the festival is called Reggae Rise Up. It was started in Florida. They kind of transported a version of it here. They didn't move it. They still have the one in Florida. But I gotta think that part of the reason they moved it up here is because there are a number of bands who are from the Baltimore, Annapolis area that are getting much bigger in that scene. So I feel like, just like growing up outside of DC and hearing go-go music and not realizing that not everyone in the world had access to
Right.
go-go music. I wonder if that's a little bit of the same here in Maryland. Like we've known some of these bands for a decade or more, and like maybe that's there's some good crop that's coming out of Maryland, and maybe that's why they wanted to have the festival up here. So it was a really good time. I think it was a well put on festival. The lines for water were longer than the lines for beer. There was plenty of opportunity to get beer. But I kind of mentioned before the show.
Yeah.
I'm not a big, and maybe this is why the beer lines were short.
That's exactly what I thought when you said it.
It was I don't know how they like everybody was just smoking. Like there wasn't any much concern. Security was there, but not oppressive in any way. And there was plenty of reefer in the air. And
Reefer.
I'm a pro weed guy who doesn't partake.
Right.
And part of the reason I don't partake is because I tend to hallucinate, I guess is the best way of saying it.
It
And
hits you hard.
and it hits me hard. And it was a very I mean, we caught up with some friends there, and it's just a very unique something that's happening, because how you can feel when you're getting drunk, like they're like I don't know, you can feel it in your arms, and you're like, all right, I need to either dial it back or or I'm going for it.
Right.
But I'm just standing there, and all of a sudden, like, the paranoia starts to like creep in, and it's just like a constant conversation is like, am I okay? No, I'm fine. And wait, no, am I okay? And then you realize, then I realize that I'm having this conversation with myself out loud, and I need to just go and move away
That's
from
great.
from the crowd. And like I said, it's kind of a small festival. On Friday, while I was first experiencing this contact hallucination, I'm standing off to the side, and there are some people from the Rehoboth area. One of the guys who runs one of the food trucks at Freeman Stage was standing over with a group of friends and saw me and pointed and started waving, and I was just like, "What the hell is happening?" And couldn't quite capture whether it was really happening or it's very, very surreal. I think it's kind of funny. It's not something that I want to necessarily pursue. Maybe do some at home testing, like all of the avid weed smokers I know, it's like, oh, you just have to find the right strain or something like that.
It's,
But it
I don't
was
know if it's finding the right. I don't really believe in strains. I know that people do, but
yeah,
like I think that by the time you can tell the difference from between strains, you're already well acquainted with marijuana.
yeah, yes, yeah,
I don't think the occasional smoker. I don't think it matters. I don't think um, the indigo and the sativa thing matters very much or not. What I think is important, I think what I would recommend for beginning pot smokers, and I still consider myself a beginning pot smoker because I'm not. I'm an occasional and like I'll have an edible right before bed, and if I take it too far before bed, then I can't function,
yeah,
and I have to go to bed. So
right,
I genuinely use it as a sleep aid almost all
yeah,
the time.
yeah,
But the other thing is have a little tiny bit, and then that's it.
yeah,
And then like everybody like no 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 that's really just like a hit,
yeah,
and that is all you need if you're not hardcore into it. For me, and this is it's a weird way to this is the thing to say. I have been drunk more often
hmm,
and feel more comfortable being drunk. Like I know
yes,
my limits. I know what I can and can't do. Like if I had to choose between driving high and driving drunk at the same level, I
yeah,
would probably choose drunk only because I know that when I'm driving drunk, I know what my limits are. I know where I'm, but if you get too high, it's just you're too in your head and
yeah,
you hear me talk. Like you can't
yeah,
imagine. No one wants to be locked in my head with me,
right, right, right,
especially me.
yeah,
And so a little tiny bit to make your neck, is
yeah,
probably all most grown-ups need. I think that people like you and I kind of missed the people who waited for it to be legal, let's say,
yeah,
kind of missed the it's like when I was getting drunk when I was 20, I was learning to consume various different alcohols, and I can tell you which alcohols are better, and I can tell you which kind of drinks you're going to like or not like, and I don't for a second think that, alcohol is better than pot. Alcohol is for a fact worse than pot.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, like physiologically,
yeah,
um, but that's the downside.
sociologically,
And sociologically. But so for instance, now that I now that I don't need to drink myself to sleep anymore, I can have a martini at night and enjoy it. And then I still wake up like I've been like
yeah,
refreshed. I haven't woken up hungover in like forever because I can genuinely just enjoy the alcohol and
yep,
call it a day. But I don't see myself getting to a point like where I smoke an entire joint all by myself. That's not going to happen to me in my lifetime.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
unless it's over the course of a week and a half, you know.
right, right,
So if your pot smoking friends come over, you should take a hit, and that's all you should take for a very long time, like
yeah,
2 hours, and
right,
then because there's like and that's I think one of the differences. There's like a mid, like you smoke and you get high, and then after a while you level up, and then after a while you level up. Like you
yeah,
kind of, but it doesn't happen at the same way that alcohol does. It's like almost like stair steps. Like if you think of alcohol as like a slope up to
right,
giddiness, this is like stair steps. So you're like normal, and then you're not normal for 45 seconds, and then you're normal, and then you're
yeah,
not normal for 45 seconds, and then you're normal. And that leveling up can be terrifying,
yeah, yeah.
especially if you lean toward paranoia, as you said that you seem to do.
It's
So
and I don't know what the validity is, but I think it's just part of my personality that I have the natural traits that I feel like people are seeking when they're smoking pot to relax and and not be not be worried about things and be present, like all of that. I feel like I do a pretty good job of that,
and
just on my own.
that's a big thing. I have a friend of mine who always says, um, when they get a little bit high, they'll be like, "I'll bet this is what you just feel like all the time." Just
Yeah,
like
yeah,
just it turns off the worry button. Like if your worry button's already off,
Yeah.
then you can only use pot recreationally. You know, if you're not suffering from debilitating anxiety, you're going to get higher than people who have anxiety and
Yes.
also are getting high. You know,
Yeah.
they probably can stand 3 or 4 times what you can stand, because
Right.
you don't need to turn the anxiety off. You start right at not anxious.
Yeah.
And so, excuse me,
Yeah.
excuse me. And sorry. And so there's only up for you,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to, because like, yeah, there are people who can, like, I could never write when I was high or edit. Well, I was doing, all I can do is watch TV and fall asleep. So it can't really be part of my life. Like I can have a beer at lunch. I'll have a martini while we're doing the podcast here. I could
Yeah.
not like get high in the middle of the day and expect anything useful to happen to me for
Right.
the
Right.
rest of the day.
Yeah.
And I've tried, and I tried once, and I'm like, nope, this isn't you. Like, I don't like being high enough to be unemployed,
Yeah.
or to not be,
Right. Right.
or to not do my stuff. Like, there are people who function very well at their jobs high,
Yeah.
and I'm
Well,
for
and
them.
I've always wondered about that because one of the things that I do have a hard time with is is having a lot of things going on in attention span and being able to focus on some, and you hear like, oh, this might be good for you to focus. I could get into an edit and stuff like that, and I've tried it in that way, and it just doesn't work.
It has to be part of, like, people who can focus. They, again, it's like an everyday thing. It's part of what they do to focus. So it's
Mhm.
easier for them. I think. I don't know for sure. Like I said, I've only tried a couple times, like when I had to work, and I'm like, I'm more worried about what I'm going to screw up because I'm not paying close enough attention. Like,
Right.
again, I don't have any problem paying attention. I have a problem not paying attention to stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't need any help to not pay attention to stuff.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
really good at not paying attention. That's kind of my thing. So,
Perfect. Yes. This week on Day Smoking on Delmarva.
smoking on Delmarva. And so, yeah, and that was a Baltimore thing, but then it was Starbird's
And then
not
it
Christmas
was
party.
I talk employee party. I talk about it every year, the fact that we got a couple hundred employees and shut down, albeit on a Monday, but shut down on a summer day, and
So everybody can come. Yeah, that is super cool.
so everybody can come. There are some unlucky ones who have to open the next day at 9:00, but that's kind of like the rookies. You have to pay your dues.
Price to pay.
But it was great, and it was just one more great thing to be able to be a part of, and it was in Dewey. It was at the Hyatt. I did break out some of my old dance moves, which I'm happy to say I still have. So, so it was a good time, but it was and doing things like that for the staff, and then even for the young staff, we had like a gaming, kind of like Restaurant Olympics, but just for the under 21-year-old kids who couldn't come to the varsity party.
Right.
And they had an absolute blast doing that. They came up with teams and costumes and like all very super, super competitive, and just having fun. I mean, they pre-partied a good bit, but it was a good thing for all of them.
Yeah, it's a sad comment on me that I don't like to go to parties if there's no alcohol. I don't think it counts as a party if there's no alcohol. And again,
Right.
it's not. I'm comfortable talking to people. I don't need the social lubricant. It's just that
Yeah.
like if I'm having fun, alcohol is going to be a part of that. Like,
Yeah.
Otherwise I feel like I'm working. Like,
Yeah.
And that's it's funny because we talk about, Stephanie and I, speaking of Stephanie, have talked about one of the pluses / minuses of being a writer is you never just have an experience. Like, you're having an experience,
right.
and you're also telling yourself the story of the experience.
Right.
And so unless I can turn off that telling myself the story of the experience bit, I feel like I'm on the job, and it's not as much fun for me.
Yep.
Oh, and so I guess speaking of not as much fun for me, I went to a christening this weekend.
And there,
Um,
let me guess, there was no alcohol.
no, there was no. Actually, the after party there was alcohol. It's
Yeah.
my brother's kid. He knows how to keep attendance up. Um, my brother John's second child, a daughter. They got the and we were joking about it. There's just so much pressure to get your kid christened when you're kind of in that culture.
Yes.
And, I teased my mom. I said the reason I moved to Maryland was so I didn't have to christen any more kids. Because, two of my children are baptized and, two of them are not. And it really is just a case of like, I will spend whatever it takes and I will do whatever you want if you stop badgering me about this damn christening, and I don't know if that's the way, you want to have people think about religion, but it's the way that they think about it.
Yeah.
And we were up there and I want to make fun of the priest. I was going back and forth about whether or not I would, and my decision is that I'm going to because I hate him. So what happened was the priest was, I was an altar boy, and there are, setting aside the rapists, there are so many priests that are unforgivable pricks that
Yeah.
it's just disgusting. And when you're an altar boy, like people come in for a funeral, most people don't go to church and they can't accept that. So if a
Yeah.
family came in and they were having a funeral and the priest would get mad if they didn't know when to sit up and to stand down, if they didn't know the words to the songs or whatever, the
Right.
priest would get visibly irritated. And I'm like, you know what? Don't have funerals. Like if you
Yeah.
if you're only allowing people who are going to sing your stupid songs, then don't. And so this priest was like that, and he was kind of berating everyone for not knowing the rules for baptism. What he didn't know was that he was talking to the Russo boys, who all went to Catholic school, and who did all know the answers, but have so much more fun watching someone stand up there asking questions to deadly silence. And so one of the things he was irritated about is when you're a Catholic, so he claims, you are automatically a priest, a prophet, and a shepherd. And he said, what's the difference between my priesthood and your priesthood? And this is my big joke. And I did not say this out loud, but it took, if my mother wasn't sitting in front, if my mother wasn't in the room, I might have said it. But my mother is in the room, and I behave myself in front of my mother because she's really the only person I'm actually afraid of. I wanted to say, if we rape a child, we go to jail, and if you rape a child, you get a trip to Italy. But instead, I kept my mouth shut. And since I had to keep my mouth shut on that question, I kept my mouth shut on all future questions. His other thing is, how can you tell if someone's a prophet? And my answer that I didn't give was, they're either handing you poison juice or telling you to kill someone.
Right.
And there was just an arrogance that I forgot. Like a lot of times I think is of people going into the priesthood because they're just too Catholic to live. I know that a lot of times people go into the priesthood because they have a disposition that they think would be better serving God. I feel like they're broken people. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Especially Catholic priests. I mean, I know that your father happens to be a minister, and sometimes you're good at something and that's the job you get. I don't begrudge anyone that. I'm not going to say that I haven't toyed myself with the idea of becoming some sort of preachy guy. Because if you do have ways to help people get through their lives, I think you should share them.
Yeah.
And there's nothing the matter with that, unless the way you think people should get through their lives is hurting other people. And that's
Right.
where I have a problem with the preponderance of preaching that goes on.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much it. That was the christening. But I did get to go to New Jersey, and other than the hour that the christening took, and I've been to dozens, hundreds possibly, because I said I was an altar boy
Yeah.
of christenings, and they're never an hour. Like
Yeah. And it's like
even
after
during
the
mass.
ceremony. Yeah.
But he was so mad that no one was answering his questions that he just stretched it out, and we just all hated on him the rest of the day. And like
Yeah.
my even my mother, she's like, who would go to that church just to get badgered? You
Yeah.
know, and they wonder why people don't go to church. And of course, I say people don't go to church because they're afraid their kids are going to get raped. The other thing is, I can't believe we're really willing to let that go. That's something that should never. They're like, yeah, I know. No, not yeah, I know. They've been raping children for 2,000 years, and
Yeah.
they only made it less part of their thing when people started to complain about it.
Right.
You know, like the last time that the last pope, the pope that quit. You know, one of the reasons he quit is like, you know, it's just easier to move them around. They're trying not to rape kids, but they have trouble. So we'll just move them from place to place so they don't rape too many kids.
Right.
You know,
Right.
that's not really,
How will they find out?
yeah, brutal. And so that kind of unchecked ecumenical power is just repugnant to me.
Having written, I want to ask you, having written a book about a cult,
Right.
like how many, like how easy is it just to see all of the similarities
Yeah.
of cultish behaviors in, especially something as celebrated as the Catholic Church is?
Absolutely. And not only that, so there's just something I might get the name wrong. I believe it's called the DSM or the DSM-4 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a great big book where they have all the diagnoses in it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the diagnosis for schizophrenia is holding a belief that is demonstrative, no, holding a belief that has no proof that also not everybody else believes. Like they had to put in, except for religious people, in the definition of
Oh, really?
schizophrenia, because otherwise it would cover religion. It's like you just go around and you say, I hear voices. Well, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Well, no, the voice I hear is God's. All right. Well, then you're sane. And
Yeah. Why?
and well, I guess it's shocking that they would do that in the
Yeah.
like to diagnose people, you
Yeah.
know, instead of someone comes and says, you know, God, I feel like God is telling me something. Your doctor, it would be irresponsible of him. It is irresponsible of your doctor not to say, there is no God. You're thinking that yourself. Why are you thinking that? Get help, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or whatever. I know that I forget that people believe in God. It's just like I forget that people like Ocean City. Ocean City is my God.
You don't believe in it.
I go on and on and on. And everybody's like, well, we love it there. I'm like, oh, that's right. People love that. And I'm shitting on it for no good reason. Drink what you like and be happy, folks. Don't rape kids, though.
Draw the line.
I draw the line at child rape. And I don't think that's a bold statement.
No, I think that's
Wish it
the
weren't
minimum.
a bold statement.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're up against it now because I've yammered. And I got nothing else anyway. How about you?
I got nothing.
All right. Well, remember, until next time at the beach,
It's happy hour whenever you say it is.